the conversation around the benefits of like why charge a fee, why is it good for you, why is it good for the client, to the logistics of the planning process and how that might change a little bit, as well as the logistics of how to actually like what language to use to close a fee versus close a fee-based case versus the way we've maybe been accustomed to doing that. And then the logistics as far as processing that business. What's involved in collecting money from a client who's paid a fee with Park Avenue and otherwise. I will say this, the biggest thing I've noticed in making this shift, what's required is a paradigm shift on your part to say, I'm gonna put it out there. Maybe do something that's a little bit risky and fearful to try to go about doing my business a different way. As we'll see, I think it's important to be willing to take that leap if you haven't already, for a lot of reasons. Just being in a position where I feel like I'm capable of charging the fee has, for me personally as an advisor, made me more confident in a lot of situations to be able to talk the talk, whether I'm going to actually charge a fee or not. It's been beneficial. So with that, let's dive right in. What questions around kind of the benefits to the client? I think the benefits of the client are really pretty simple. We talk in our FOP sessions, we talk in the basic school, we talk at LBS Forum about the reasons or the two questions people ask in terms of whether they're going to work with you or not. They ask, do I respect this person? Like, are they competent? And they ask, do I trust this person? And the reason that a lot of people, I think, falter, or that we falter maybe in their eyes from a trust standpoint, is this nagging concern around, is Ashby going to really be able to be objective and recommend, certain things to me in my best interest if he has to recommend certain things to get compensated for it? And when you charge a client a fee for the plan or for your time, even though Ashby may still recommend all the same products, the level of trust goes up because the client feels like the pressure to have this move forward and be a transactional relationship is not as great as it would have been otherwise. And I think we had a question here. If you have questions, please feel free to unmute and just ask. Oh, sorry, you can't see that, Ashby. And I'm not really sure why. The source input on the TV there. So if you're not hearing audio, I think you should follow. You certainly can't hear me, but hopefully you can read Mike Dare's comment there. It usually is a problem on your end, and you need to log back in, log out, log back in, please. What's that?
It was fine a second ago.
Okay, it just disappeared on us. Got it. Okay, so back to the discussion. Just gonna let you keep working on that. The other thing I'll just mention is that my experience, and this is the feedback I've gotten from a lot of other advisors, is that clients constantly share with you the expectation that you're going to charge a fee.
Plugged in there, Ashby.
Sorry, we're having a little technical issue here, right in the Raleigh office. That's me. Apologies, everybody. Yeah, maybe we'll try it. I don't know. Sure. I think it's probably me. I don't know that it's solvable without a restart. So we'll try that. Oh, there we go. We're good. All right. Sorry about that pause, everybody. We had our own physical issues here with the technology. So bottom line, it's very simple. Clients trust the fact that they've paid a fee to a professional for a professional service, and they expect it to do that anyway. It's the way most people interact in the marketplace with vendors and other professionals, and so why would this be any different? Very little pushback in that area. Now, to the FR, to the advisor at CP, the benefits are many. First of all, the first year revenue on a client relationship tends to be higher. The client, it's been proven outside of CP and inside of CP, and granted it's maybe smaller sample size inside, but it's been proven across the board that clients are actually more likely to do the implementation after having paid the fee up front. And so that's sort of a double whammy there in a good way. This reduces the capacity issues, and capacity specifically around time, Because I don't have to waste time with people. I don't have to be fearful of wasting time. As we'll get to in a second, our possibilities from an outcome standpoint change drastically when we're in this fee-based mode versus not. The risk to us as advisors goes down tremendously. It's a great reason to do annual reviews, right? Because those annual reviews now are, they're billable in a sense, in a way that they are not right now. And the feeling is maybe that's a bit of a drag on our time. It doesn't have to be that case. I think we come across as more professional, as opposed to salesy or transactional, which I think most of us fight that image in the marketplace and just in general. We're better business people. I think we can think differently about our time and what our time is worth when we're in this fee-based mode. And it's probably very simply going to be necessary in the future because of ongoing pressure from a regulatory standpoint. The DOL may be just the beginning, who knows, of what might come. And so increasingly, this we may just be in a fee-based world. Let's be ahead of that curve rather than behind it. So that said, I've gotten pushback. I mean, I've had pushback. Everything on this list is mine to own, as well as I've heard it from other advisors. I worry that if I might have a good prospect, but are already hard to find, and right, hard to get in front of good people. The last thing I want to do is scare them off by talking about a fee. There's the prospect that maybe has some low-hanging fruit from a transaction standpoint that I don't want to again scare that person off with discussion of an additional fee. I get this one, and I understand this one. The fear of like I have to do a better job. I got to deliver something if I'm going to charge somebody for my time. Versus I've got to be accountable for this from a financial standpoint and otherwise. So I get that. There's the unknown because this is a new space for a lot of us. If you've never done this, then the first time is going to be there's some anxiety there. I get it. Totally get this one, and I've seen it. There's a different sales process or different language required or necessary even to be effective in closing a case up front that's going to involve a fee. And then the worry of what am I going to actually deliver to someone? Because we really don't deliver them anything consistently in our process right now, aside from LBS and the planning recommendations and the collateral that comes along with that. None of that is really a deliverable in the sense of financial planning deliverable that Park Avenue is going to recognize. So we'll address that today. And there's just the inertia of things are good. I'm moving in a certain direction. This is going to involve hitting the brakes to some degree, perhaps. There's the fear of that. And so I get that as well. I hope that what we'll be able to do today is begin to address this list, and you'll see why some of these things are less of a concern than they really should be. The client's resistance, really, I have found is zero. If we have done the second item, which is that we've shown them that they have, to some degree, if they weren't already aware of it, they've got problems that we can help them solve, then there's very little resistance to the prospect of charging a fee. It doesn't mean they're not going to work. It doesn't mean that everybody's going to work with you, but that wasn't the case before either, right? So in general, I would say there's very little problem at all. I think the client has a much bigger problem with us not being paid for our time because of the suggestion of a bias that it always presents, right? So what are the possible outcomes? This is maybe where the aha happened for me, and I think I had to actually have charged a fee or two and had a conversation with someone before I really got this. What does it look like when we're doing what I now I hear is called free-based planning, where we're not charging for our time? There's really three possible outcomes. Someone can tell us no up front, like Ashby meets with somebody to do the open, and at the end of it, he says, we're going to go through and do this whole process. There's no charge to you. We do amazing work. We've been in business for 35 years. We help people solve X, Y, and Z problems. And they say, yeah, I'm not interested. So to me, that is always insulting. Whether we've talked about it before or not, but the fact that you're offering someone something that's so valuable for free and they still said no, it's just how could that be? So that's not great, and we don't get paid for that, right? Or maybe worse, they say no at implementation, not up front. So Ashby takes them through that whole process. It takes 3 or 4 or 5 meetings. It takes 10 or 12 hours of Ashby's time between meeting time and prep time, etc. He's wasted all that time, and then there's zero compensation for it. And that is a reality that all of us face as advisors under our current model. Or there's the yes, where he'll be compensated one time. He'll be compensated, I say one time, for each implementation that he does. Life insurance, 401k, investments, annuity, and so on, disability. So these are the rules we had to live by. There's 3 doors to walk through, and 2 of them are we don't get compensated at all. The middle one, I think, is the worst of all, because not only do we not get compensated, but we actually take a loss, like a huge loss from a time standpoint relative to what it could have been. And on the third one, the yes, we still took some degree of a loss because we still weren't compensated for our time. So what's the fee-based planning outcomes? We can get a no up front, and that's fine. Like, I'm totally fine with telling somebody that to go through this process it's going to cost $4,500, and they think about it and they say, no thanks, I just can't do it, I'm not interested. I get it. There's a cost there, right? And so there's got to be a threshold where some in the marketplace are willing to move forward and some are not. At least I didn't waste any time beyond that meeting, and I don't have to feel insulted that somebody wasn't willing to write a $4,500 check, at least not yet, right? Or they say no at implementation, and in other words, we get to the end of the process. Ashby spent 3 meetings with them. He spent 12 hours doing all of that prep work and meeting time. He made recommendations like you should buy DI and life insurance and roll these investments over and allocate them this way. And they said, thanks, we appreciate it. We're going to take that plan. We're going to go implement it somewhere else. It was still a no on implementation, but at least he was compensated for his time. Or a yes, where now I get the best of both worlds. And this is, I think, the most likely outcome under this model, at least what we've seen so far, where Ashby's going to get compensated for those 12 hours based on whatever his hourly rate is, and he's going to get compensated on an ongoing basis for the implementation. Most clients I have found are our loose statistics are like 80% of the time when they go through and pay the fee, they're going to do some level of implementation as well. 80% of the time is as good, maybe better than our closing ratio right now when we collect data from somebody actually taking the planning process. So to be able to get that level of buy-in plus compensation is a beautiful thing. So this is, I think, the challenging part. How do you do this? And there's guidance to some degree from Park Avenue, who all this runs through. But I think that guidance can be a little bit misleading. I will say this, that all of it has to be based on the value of your time. So it all has to be grounded in an hourly rate, but I think we should be charging people a fixed fee. So grounded in an hourly rate, like we're thinking in the terms of an hourly rate, but we're going to charge someone a fixed fee. In the same way that when I meet with most other professionals, be they the contractor who's going to build a deck at my house or the attorney who's going to do some legal work for me, I'm very uncomfortable when they say, we can get this done for you, here's our hourly rate. Carly, I know, is on the call. We just had a conversation about a contractor who told us that they can fix something, here's my hourly rate. Didn't tell us how many hours. It makes me nervous as the person writing that check. So we, I think, can put it back on us. Like, we'll calculate, because we're the ones that know what we think the allotted time will be, and we can offer someone a fixed fee, and now it's up to us to manage that time well, right? So we got to start somewhere. Everybody has an hourly rate. You just don't know what it is. There's a number of ways to back into it. I think you can look at how much money you made last year, or average of the last 3 years, and how many hours you worked, and what does that look like? $10. So Schick says $10 an hour. Look at maybe when you feel like you were paid fairly on a case. What does that look like? Actually, well, hey, you're talking. I'm going to repeat it occasionally. The other, if you've ever been paid for consulting work, no. If you've ever been paid for consulting work to come in and do training or to provide corporate education, financial education, etc., there's a basis for an hourly rate. It can be whatever you want it to be. The guidance from Park Avenue is that the upper limit is $500 an hour. I'm using an example of $250 an hour. In my practice, I've used more than that as my hourly rate. So I'm using this as I think it's like on the low end of what it would typically be. So if it's $250 an hour, sample menu here. Let's say it's a straightforward personal financial planning case, it's a distribution planning case. We're going to have 3 like 90-minute planning meetings, which is a lot. After an open, after data is collected, 3 90-minute planning meetings. If there's 5 hours of prep work involved, that's 10 and a half hours. So it's a $2,300, $2,375 is the dollar amount of that fee, which we're going to charge and present to the client at the end of an engagement meeting. To do, as an example, retention planning. So if I'm going to come in and do retention planning for a company related to their overall, business continuity plan as a standalone, business planning kind of a thing. And let's say that's going to involve so many meetings with the CEO or the board who makes compensation decisions, and as well as other decision makers. If that's 12 hours, and there's my $3,000 annual fee. Exit planning. Again, being able to map out based on the customized exit plan. And APG is here to help you do this if you don't feel comfortable doing it all on your own. Being able to calculate exactly what's involved and justify to yourself, but also be able to justify back to the client in the rare instance that there's a question on that, why the fee is what it is. So let's pause here, because this is big. Right? This is big. What questions, if any, are there about calculating the fee and arriving, in terms of your hourly rate, and then arriving at the fixed fee for the whole plan?
So let's take the example we talked about yesterday's client I met, right? I shared with you just half an hour ago.
Yes.
Said, guy makes $150,000, he's married, no kids, he is in job for 3-4 years, bought a house recently. So when you're meeting with him, with the planning, he likes what you have presented to him. Yeah. What kind of fee structure we can put together for a person like this? But that's not a lot of work. I mean, there is no lot of data that needs to be worked on. It's more of a concept and strategy kind of work, right?
Yeah.
So I think some kind of layering, if we have some kind of guidelines, if you have this kind of client, this might be reasonable, because you're not going to spend 60 hours trying to get the client to understand what needs to happen. Probably 2 or 3 meetings, the decisions will be made.
Sure.
Kind of thing. And then you got the next level is people with a little more complex financial statements,
right,
all different kinds of buckets going around.
Right.
And the last one, what you just said about the business matter, which seems to be reasonable.
So I'm going to give examples, okay? I'll give examples of where that could be done. But Ashok, I think it's a mistake, and it's us coming from a place of just the unknown.
Yeah.
You're talking about a case that's relatively easy. Don't ever take for granted the value, the complexity of the work that we do relative to the rest of the industry. Like everything I'm describing here, the rest of the industry, or a segment at least of the typical traditional industry is doing, they're charging an hourly rate based on the time it takes to do things like run a needs analysis, where a paraplanner, an assistant, is going to enter in a bunch of information into a needs analysis calculator. It's going to spit out a 180-page report that took very little time, and I would say added almost zero value into somebody's world, and they're absolutely going to charge $300 an hour for that service. So take even your simple example where it's 2 to 3 meetings. It's an hour, hour and a half each. There's some amount of prep work that's involved to do that. And so let's just say that it was an hour per meeting, if any. There is maybe 9 hours collectively, maybe more like 8 there. Again, whatever your hourly rate is, it is what it is. That allows us to arrive at a less expensive fee because it's a simple case. That's fine. It's still like $1,500.
Yeah, I mean,
well, whatever the math is, right?
Yeah.
That's how you justify it. So part of the challenge, the paradigm shift here is around this idea of you taking a stand on your own behalf and saying, this is what my time is worth, and people give you pushback. It's like, well, if you don't want to pay the fee, that's totally fine. I get it. This is just what it costs to do this with me. And then we have this track record. All the things that we sell in the open, we're selling here. We're just associating value to it. And I think we're probably still charging less than it's really worth, right? So some people will balk at that. My experience has been the folks that balk at something like that, a low fee for that kind of planning process, they were going to balk anyway. They weren't going to be good clients. So if nothing else, this is a way to
Weed out.
yes, exactly, weed out people that just weren't going to be a good fit for a number of reasons. So why not? Perfect. What else? Ashby?
Going back to the hourly thing, and I might be getting ahead, but is there something that where we actually have to log our hours? That I spent working on Neil's case, I spent an hour doing this, an hour doing that.
Yeah, good question. So Park Avenue, and I'll pull this up here. Park Avenue has a very clear financial planning consulting guide, financial planning and financial consulting guide. I'm just going to jump back up to the financial planning, a section here on hours. So you can charge either an hourly fee or a flat fee, and there's any number of ways you can determine what your flat fee is going to be. We're using the hourly rate as the basis of the flat fee. Hourly rate times hours work, or intended to work. And you see that you've got ranges there, but obviously you can justify why something's going to be outside of those parameters. The thing is, if you were to actually charge an hourly fee, you would have to do that. You would have to actually track your hours. You would have to do a time log for every single case. That has to be submitted to Park Avenue. I don't think people want to be charged an hourly rate, like on an open-ended basis, and I don't think you want to be tracking those hours. So we know enough about what we do. We've been doing it long enough to know how much time it reasonably takes, and we can put the risk on us, and I think probably take a little bit of anxiety away from the client by just being able to come back and say, you're going to get this, 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 and this. It's going to solve X, Y, and Z problems in your world. It's going to involve this many meetings face-to-face with me and this deliverable at the end. Here's the cost. And that's the cost. There's no hidden fee anywhere. Unless once the facts change, we have to do more work than we originally thought. So again, only if the hourly fee is charged is the time log required. Any other questions on the hourly rate?
Neil, I have a question.
Go for it, Tom.
I have existing clients that are introducing me, and I've not charged a fee to the existing clients. What is the pivot? I mean, how do we say to them, we're doing this fee now, and then they're going back and saying, well, I'm referring you to these people, but you never charged me a fee. I mean, help me with a pivot there.
Yep. So I think this is a question I had, and I've kind of seen the light on this now with a little bit of training. So the question is, you have new fee clients and old free clients. And what you're saying is, like Tom Dumas, the practice, the financial planning practice of Tom Dumas is going to make this shift. You're going to move to a total fee-based model. You still have all your other compensation, but you're going to move to this fee-based model. What I think, if you're going to make even that drastic of a change, which I think a lot of advisors will, what behooves you to do is to communicate the fee model to everyone, to both groups. Here, you're going to charge the fee for all new people in the door. You may charge the fee for the old people, but you may decide, especially for the people like Tom that you know are a huge drain on your time. They're not worth the time. Like, you take a loss time-wise on those folks. You may still decide to charge for the old free clients, or you may decide for certain clients that you will waive the fee. But either way, you've communicated the fact that they're under a fee model, and now they know maybe more precisely what your time is actually worth. It makes them feel more valued as clients of yours, and I think it makes it easier for them to refer people in without there being confusion of like, well, the deal for me with Tom was this. Why is Bob that I referred to is something different? Tom, does that make sense?
Yeah.
I think it's got to be communicated to everybody if you're going to make that kind of a shift for existing clients.
Yeah, I agree. It's a paradigm shift, like you said. I mean, 15 years of never charging clients. It's a paradigm shift.
It's a paradigm shift. I would put it to you this way, that there's probably enough opportunities if you just want to put a toe in the water for anybody who's considering it. There's probably enough opportunities for you in the next 6 months to deal with people that want to be charged a fee and practice and see how this goes. Because we get those objections or questions from clients on an open all the time, or even over the phone, initial email or text. however they come in the door. Try it out, get comfortable with that, and then you get to come back and decide, do I need to make a more sweeping change to my, like Tom said, existing client base. But no reason to put the cart before the horse, because it is a huge paradigm shift. So Carly, thanks for the message there. I will definitely repeat the questions going forward. The check is payable to pass. Handling reviews with existing clients, Scott, I would say it falls into the same category. This may be the time to communicate to them that you've shifted your if you so desire, Scott, and others, you've shifted your practice to a fee-based model. You want your existing clients to be aware of that, and maybe you're going to let them know that their fee is going to be waived, or maybe it's not. It probably behooves you to segment clients and decide who are those A clients that are going to fall into a category of maybe a fee waiver because maybe they're worth $50,000 a year of recurring revenue, and you don't need something like a fee to get in the way of that. Or maybe they're not, and they're the kind of client that it does cause you to take a loss on your time every year, and they absolutely fit under a fee-based model. Beautiful. All right, so back to the general message here as we move through it. Something that has been made clear from a process, from a flow standpoint, especially for business planning. We'll kind of segment this into personal and business planning. This so far for CP advisors have been engaged on the high-level business planning model side of things and had some success. This has tended to be the course that has been most successful, especially if you're just like new to this and getting into it. What does the old process look like? We'll be clear. This is the old free-based model. The flow of meetings was something like this, right? You made an initial call. You had an open. At the open, they decided whether or not they're going to work with you, right? And so you moved to data. And then you had your very first planning meeting, of which there would be however many, until hopefully we implemented and sold something. So what I think is tough is to use this exact same format especially for a highly complex or advanced case like an exit planning case, to say, I'm going to sell someone on the idea of a fee in the open without the opportunity to have seen any data to understand like fully what their world looks like. It's not cookie cutter from one business owner to another. And then to be able to turn around and, without any knowledge of the details, without any analysis done, be able to turn around and justify to them why a fee would be a certain amount, right? And so while we've tried this model, it's been a little more difficult than doing it this way. Make the call. We have an initial open. I would say it's something of an abbreviated open. You can just pretend you know how to spell abbreviated, right? Is there two B's? We don't even know. You know what?
Put ABB.
Yeah, I was going to say.
Yeah.
Let's be meta. Abbreviated open. We're going to collect some data to be able to see the lay of the land, combine the actual lay of the land data-wise with what the client shared in terms of their concerns and their priorities. Be able to come back now and have an engagement meeting, which is, again, not going to be very long, and it could be done over the phone or over the web, just as the open could have been done over the phone or over the web. The engagement meeting is where I'm going to sit down with that person and I'm going to share an engagement letter. That's going to be the focal point, the planning presentation tool to use in this meeting. And specifically, we're going to highlight the planning challenges that we see, what we think the possible solutions are, and share with them what the deliverable at the end of the process would be and what the fee is. And when they agree to the fee now at the engagement meeting, we go into the first planning meeting. And I can just tell you that while there may be an extra step there, at least when you're taking baby steps into this world for high-level exit planning cases, it's been worth it. It's been worth it, and the track record has been good in terms of the ability to get people to consent to paying that fee. Example of the engagement letter. So somebody can't see, I'm not sure why. I would, again, if you can't see the presentation, if you can't see the screen share, I think the best solution is to just restart and then jump right back in. So the example of the engagement letter on the business planning side.
I think you need to open a couple windows.
Thanks, Jashby. I appreciate that.
Yeah.
So let's do this. All right. So this is a very straightforward business planning, not even exit planning, sort of an engagement letter where we are going to lay out the process. We're going to describe exactly what's going to happen at each step in the process, how many meetings it involves. We're going to lay out the different areas, different components of planning that are going to be included, and we're going to map out the actual costs for doing that and the deliverable that comes along with it. And I will tell you that from a selling standpoint, from a narrative standpoint, this is where you win the day, is with the discussion of a preview of what the solution will be in each of these areas. And this to me, paradigm shift wise, is a big thing, because this is contrary to what we've mainly been trained to do through LBS and a lot of sales processes, where we're holding information back until later in the process, right? We're like building towards a recommendation. And in this case, we're being very clear up front. We see this and this problem with your current buy-sell agreement. It's going to expose you to creditor issues, and it's going to be very, very difficult to unwind. So we're going to make a recommendation to lay out a clear path to do your buy-sell agreement this way. We see these issues around your current employee retention model. It's costing you too much money, and it's probably not very effective from a retention standpoint. We're going to show you a path to implement a retention model where you are going to have less money out of pocket. You're going to have tremendously less risk in terms of what if the person doesn't hold up their end of the bargain, or what if they do leave too early. We're going to show you how to implement that in such a way that it will also pay for itself in terms of retaining that employee and ensuring that in doing so we add to the bottom line. And what that looks like. And so I'm getting specific enough that people can see that, A, they understand, they have an inkling of what their problem is, right? This is one of the only two reasons that we're on the board for why people don't accept the fee. They've got to understand what the problem is, and I'm giving them a preview of what the actual solution would be, so it's not a surprise there. And now the deliverable speaks to that, because this is where I can lay out exactly what they're going to get in black and white in terms of that set of instructions. That will give them the path to go and implement. The thing to keep in mind here is that this is separate of the implementation. Like the phrase I think we'll hear again and again, the logic of it. Mike, I'm going to come back to your question here in just a second. Is you have two phases of the work that we do. There's a design phase, and there's a build phase. And the beauty of this is that this is the exact same talk we've used for like 10 years from a training standpoint in the open to talk about how we get paid. We have just always told the story that we wear the hat of both the architect who designs the blueprint to build the house and the hat of most of the subcontractors who actually do the work of making the blueprint come to life. But we waive the architect's fee, the design fee. And now we're saying we're going to do both of these, or we can do both of these. What we're engaging around is the design portion of the conversation. And the plan, the design, the plan stands alone. It's its own thing. You can choose at the end of this process, once I've delivered the plan to you, to implement these recommendations with whoever you already have on your team or anyone else. We're capable of doing the implementation in some of these areas. And if you want to do the implementation with us, that's fine too. But it's not an obligation. I want to be very, very clear about that. And so we will only implement as a separate concern. Now, that's for like the plan itself, or a business plan or a personal plan. Mike's question is around, I believe, let me go back and look at it here, around personal planning. So for $3,000, are you going to include personal financial planning for the owners of the business? Will that be a separate fee? Communication plan, personal financial planning first. So I think there's a couple questions here, right? One we've dealt with in the past, which is like, do we start on the personal planning side or the business planning side with the business owner? I think it's always best to do both concurrently, but to actually begin, like step one is on the personal planning side, to get the ball rolling there. It just doesn't always work out that way. Right? Like that's our agenda, our priorities, to say it's always best to do it this way. And sometimes the business owner says, that's great, thank you for sharing that, Ashok. I need to talk about employee retention, so that's where we're going to start. So it's one thing for us to be assertive and say this is the way it should be done. Business owner may have a different idea about that. It would be, the personal planning would be a totally separate fee, totally separate engagement. It certainly could be combined, but if it's going to be combined, then the engagement letter is going to be a little more complex and long, and the fee is going to be that much higher. You just have to be very, very clear about that. Exit planning is maybe a little bit different because so much of what happens from an exit planning standpoint is related back to the personal balance sheet. So half of the bullet points, I'm just going to pull up an example of one because I thought I had one up that was general business planning. Half of the bullet points are going to be around the business owner's personal situation, whether it's retirement income, retirement distribution, or whether it is around their legacy. So it's having these types of conversations with clients that are absolutely touch on and are related to their personal situation. The fee's higher, right? The fee in this case is like double the amount that it would be otherwise. So the complexity is at least double, right? Probably, and again, I'd say in almost every one of these examples, the fee is too low. This is an example, was a case where an early approach to doing this, and like so many of these instances, zero pushback on the fee. Like the client couldn't write the check fast enough. Part of what makes this effective, like Michael Harris and I have had many of these conversations, is in a case like this, we are previewing as a part of these conversations around the modules here, the different components of planning. We're previewing to them that we're going to help you save an estimated X amount of money in taxes or these additional costs over time. And the numbers in this case are like in the hundreds of thousands of dollars from an income and estate tax standpoint. So writing a check for $5,500 to save $500,000 is just like a no-brainer, right? All in the way that you sell in that engagement meeting, that engagement conversation, all in the way that you position and sell your services and the fee. So there's the example, right, of the fee or the engagement letter for exit planning, for general business planning. The same thing holds true on the personal planning side. Just an example here, integrated with our personal planning process, being able to lay out the same types of key points around what we will do. Reviewing existing facts, creating analysis of different cash flow possibilities, retirement possibilities, different retirement distribution strategies, etc., investment analysis, and so on. Things that we already do for every single case on the personal planning side. Just laying it out here in engagement letter form with discussion of what we'll do, what the deliverable will be, what the fee would be, and so on. These engagement letters are marketing pieces, right? These are not like the official document. These are marketing pieces that describe in detail what is described in one word on the actual past official financial planning or financial consulting paperwork that has to be signed by the client. So in the same way that we have a marketing brochure for our services, that's not, no one actually signs that, or that doesn't actually get submitted back to the home office with a life insurance application. This is marketing, right? The fee, the document itself, let's get into that conversation. The actual logistics of how this is processed are different. So we've got a couple of paths here, and we're going to have a third one. Let's make this a little bigger. So financial planning is the most straightforward. This is, in a sense, this is traditional financial planning. It's software driven, and LBS in this case is the software. This is the easiest in terms of requirements. It's the easiest in terms of processing. Like less is required to be submitted to Park Avenue to get approval for a plan. Less is required of you from a licensing standpoint or designation standpoint to qualify to do financial planning. You're delivering a document at the end of the day. The deliverable on the personal planning side, we'll talk about in just a second in LBS. Financial consulting is a little more open-ended. Here you have the ability to deviate, create your own customized deliverable, because it's a little more open-ended, more is expected of you in terms of your qualification, right? And more is expected of you in terms of what you submit to Park Avenue in doing this.
Is this all on our website or the past website, this information?
It is. I'm going to pull up a document here in a show that's going to give you way more than probably you'll need, but it's all contained therein. This is the high level. The third path is specific to the type of planning that we are really ramping up, which is exit planning. This was expected this month, and it sounds like from what we're hearing that it probably won't be until January 1 now. That there's going to be a third option related to exit planning, purely for business owners, that is going to be a little more flexible in a couple of instances. One, it's going to require like the CXP designation versus just versus having to go out and get your CFP to do exit planning. It's not necessarily related to financial planning. It'll also allow for the sharing of licensing designations. So as an example, Ashby here is a CXP. He has a designation. He'll be able to go out very easily and do this fee-based work. If a new advisor is getting started in CP Raleigh wants to do or has the opportunity to do an exit planning case, is going to do it jointly with Ashby, as long as they have the IAR, the Series 7, 6, or 7 or 6 in the IAR, even if they don't have the CXP, they will be able to still be compensated on the fee because they're doing the case with Ashby, who does. So it allows for the reality, which is that business planning is a team sport, and we don't all have to be we don't have to all have 100% overlap in terms of qualification. Somebody who brings a case to Ashby doesn't have to hold the designations that he has as the guy who's going to be, the closer of the planner. Again, we'll hear more about that. This is just what we've been told so far based on preliminary documents that have been shared. Now, qualification-wise, to do financial planning, you got to have a Series 7. You have to have your IAR licenses, so either a 65 or a 66. You can waive that. I mean, that's virtually everybody at CP because that's ultimately required. That can be waived if you have either the CHFC or the CFP designation. So in general, your investment licensed properly, you can do financial planning. Financial consulting is the same requirements, except you have to have one of those designations to charge down, to go down that path. And exit planning is going to be similar. It's just that the required designation is the CXP as opposed to one of the other financial planning ones. Talked about that. Let's see. I don't think we need to go over this part.
Hey, Neil?
Yep. Michael?
Question here. Tom wanted to know if we have a different engagement letter between financial planning and then the financial consulting. I don't think so.
It's customized, though. Each engagement letter is customized, right? And so, Tom, what is different about planning versus consulting is that you're gonna have a lot more variation in terms of discussion of the deliverable in a financial consulting engagement letter. It's because it's being designed on a custom basis for every case. The deliverable on a financial planning case, like for personal planning or for business planning, the deliverable, among other things, is the fee-based planning report in living balance sheet that I'm going to show here in just a second. Does that answer the question? Does that make sense?
Yeah, so you're going to measure your hourly fee is going to change because you might not put it in anywhere near as many hours of the consulting role as you would the planning option.
No, I don't think the hours are necessarily going to deviate one way or the other. If anything, Tom, I would expect that your financial consulting hours would be different than financial. It would be more than financial planning.
Yeah.
So, Neil, on the consultant thing, we don't use the LBS or?
For the consulting, you can use all of the above. Any approved tool that you have, you're creating the deliverable in essence as you go. So it may be that you're using LBS for various elements. Maybe you're using the BEI software for some of it. Maybe you're creating your own custom deliverable in terms of like an executive summary. And all of that is going to go up to pass and be approved before delivery. And they're going to say, this all looks good, professional, great, you're good. Whereas the official deliverable for financial planning is that fee-based report out of LBS. Does that make sense, Lisa?
Yes.
Perfect.
Thank you.
As far as the engagement letter, I mean, do we have a template, obviously?
We do.
Okay.
Again, there's support if you need it, and you can do it on your own if you feel confident. So we'll circulate after this the examples of engagement letters. If you're doing a case through APG, they're going to help you put the letter together based on data collection, review of the facts. And the case splits are the same. It's just 80-20, it's 50-50. It's just exactly as it was before. We're just going to have the added step of a team code, to make sure that the back office team's getting compensated as well. It says first meeting logistics. This is engagement meeting logistics, right? So on the financial planning side, it's the financial planning agreement, which we'll take a look at in a second here. Very, very simple document. It's the application, if you will, for financial planning. It's the same thing for financial consulting. They've got to be provided with, just as they would if you're having a conversation about an investment account, a wrap account, an RIA platform account. You're going to provide the firm brochure, the ADV. You're going to provide your brochure as an IAR representative. You're going to provide the guardian privacy policy and get that agreement signed. All of that, plus probably the check that you've collected, however you choose to do that, is going to be submitted to Park Avenue at the beginning of the process. You get compensated based on what was submitted so far. You're off and running on creating the plan, engaging with the client, the next step in the way. Pass's only requirement is that you complete delivery of the plan within 12 months of the initial engagement, right? Sometimes this is an issue. It's not your issue, it's the client's issue. They start to drag their feet. I mean, I say that, this is what we've been told. And so they paid you for something and they haven't gotten the data collected for you yet. So you got paid and you're just waiting on them. And you know what? That's very different than our typical methodology where they say they want to move forward and we're waiting on the data and we're not getting paid. At least our time has been protected in this case, right? So I haven't seen that yet, but I'm sure it's a possibility. From there, the logistics of it on the financial planning side, we're going to implement, or we're at the stage of implementation for financial planning. There's going to be this signed client agreement. This is a separate form that acknowledges that the plan was delivered. The plan, and I thought we updated these, maybe we didn't. Here we go. Plan delivered, right? So the plan itself has to be approved before it's delivered. So it just goes up to Park Avenue. Park Avenue, on the RA side, they have people responsible for administering this, and they're going to say, this looks good, approved. Now you have the ability to go and deliver it, collect final payment. On the financial consulting side, you have to submit to pass not only the deliverable you've created, but the recap of all the meetings, the notes, recommendations to the client, and then any analysis that backs that up, documentation-wise, that backs that up. And then you're going to deliver the plan and you're going to get the financial consulting agreement signed. None of that, I think, is like rocket science. There's a little bit of additional signature gathering involved here and the initial step of submitting something to Park Avenue, but I don't think we're creating anything here that we wouldn't already be doing if we were doing our job on the planning side. We just haven't ever gotten paid to do it up until now. The actual documents themselves, so let's jump out and take a look at that. The actual financial planning these are delivery documents. Let me find an actual agreement. Let's look at this one. So financial planning agreement and the financial consulting agreement looks very similarly. It's a basic application. It's 5 pages long. Most of it is just verbiage, right? So we're going to collect the basic information about the client as we would for a new investment account. We're going to highlight, is this a comprehensive plan? Is this a focus plan? Like, for instance, I might do business planning, which is a comprehensive kind of a plan. I might do something else. I might include in this, employee retention. And I'm going to use the employee retention sections in the living balance sheet, financial planning output document to highlight that. The client, we're going to include information about our fee schedule, right? So let's use our example earlier. It was a $3,000 fee. I might say 50% of that's going to be up front. So they're going to write a check to me, to Park Avenue Securities for $1,500 at that engagement meeting. And then the other $1,500, the remaining balance, is going to be due at delivery of the financial plan. And they are going to sign on this last page. Date, name, sign, where were we? I'm going to sign as well. And I'm going to submit it all to Park Avenue, right? The document here, as well as the check, if it's a business planning case like this one was, and they're signing with a company check, I also have to provide evidence that that person is like an officer and owner of the company. So articles of incorporation, a corporate resolution, something on the company letterhead explaining who this person is. Right? It's got to go up, but otherwise it's fairly straightforward. Then once we've gone through the process and we've had our 3 meetings or whatever we agreed to, I'm ready to make delivery of the plan based on the dialogue and revisions. I'm going to submit the plan to Park Avenue. They're going to sign off on it. And I'm going to deliver the plan and have this document, this 1-page document, signed by the client and collect the remaining balance of whatever is due. This is the part that stands alone. This is separate of the actual implementation. And now we have the opportunity to ask the question, who's going to help us get this stuff done? Let's connect intention to actual action. Let's get some stuff done. And I think more often than not, we'll find that they're going to want to do that business with us. Quickly here, briefly, let's see if we have a question. Oh, good question, Tom. So, I missed a couple more. Mike, financial consulting is like open architecture. Absolutely. Rick, do we still collect all the data from the business fact finder in the new fee-based process? And I would say we generally are. I mean, we can be a little less intense when we're just collecting data for the engagement part of the letter. There may be some things we'll follow up on after that, but we need to collect enough to be able to come back and justify why the fee is the fee. Right now, Tommy Rosser, right now the fee is paid, it hits your contract, it hits the grid at whatever your payout rate is. There's a new financial planning, or fee-based planning rather, grid that's going to come out. It's going to be separate from the grid for annuities and other investment business, which will increase your payout. That's all we know so far. That's supposed to be live on 1/1, so January 1st. Just don't have the details of exactly what it involves yet. So less money going to the house, to Park Avenue, more money going back to the advisor. But it does flow through the pass grid.
It's just going to be a new one, hopefully soon. And LBS.
So we're going to log in real quick here. And I just want to highlight 2 things that you have to do going forward if you want to do financial planning. The first of which is you need to go and look. I'm going to show you the screen on which to do this. Pull up a sample client. So this is just one of the sample clients in LBS, just to show. John and Sue Jones, you need to verify that you are already set up to do financial planning in LBS. So this is something that if you haven't done this already, you have to email Kathy Redinger at LBS and request that the fee-based planning capabilities of LBS be turned on. And she's just going to want to verify that you're properly licensed to do financial planning. Here's what it'll look like. Go to the fact finder. Go to family information, client and spouse. So you're trying to drill down on where their name and date of birth and et cetera, all that is. If your fee-based capabilities are turned on in LBS, then you will have at the end of the client section, is the only place, at the end of the client section, you'll have a drop-down menu. If you haven't done this, then you're going to have nothing there. It'll stop at citizenship. So we're going to choose yes. We save it. And now I can go in and I can do some things like update client objectives. I'm going to go to the workflow wizard. I can include action steps that are customized. So as an example, you've always had, let's say like in the business or protection or cash flow room, you've always had action steps here that were cookie cutter, default, things like you could check a box and say, inquire about raising deductibles for your P&C coverage. Awesome. So those are all still there. And for each room, you've got a number of customizable action steps where you can include quite a bit of verbiage, 1,000 words each. around what a next step needs to be. So go back, speak with X, Y, and Z attorney about investigating this particular buy-sell structure, blah, blah, blah. And you can enter in things like in the fact finder, the client's objectives. I thought I had some of this entered in. I'm actually not seeing it. So you can enter in, I must not, oh, you know what, we're in the wrong client, that's why, Armstrong. So you can enter in objectives, you can enter in those customized action steps. And so you see we've made some of those selections. We can do that under each of the rooms in the workflow wizard and where it's relevant, or we can customize and include our own. And provide for orderly transfer of 49% of company stock from Tom to Junior by Tom's age 75, high priority. Now, when I go to produce the fee-based planning output, I'm going to go to Tools, the Document Center, and I have now new options, whether you've been in this room ever or not. There are new options here based on the fee-based planning capabilities. I can go to the fee-based planning section, and I've got a universe of options there. I think I printed out the most comprehensive option here. See, there's only a couple windows open, actually. And so, like in good traditional financial planning fashion, if I did it all, if I chose everything that's capable, I could produce a 293-page financial planning document, right? Which I would say is more useless than having nothing, right? It's just so overwhelming. But within the it's overkill, exactly. But within the module, I can go and select pages and content, and I can be selective about what's going to be included. So like all those objectives that I laid out that are totally customized, I want to include certain areas under business analysis, estate planning analysis, things that are relevant to the client. I'm going to include those things. And things that aren't, I'm going to uncheck. Like I don't think we need to talk about the 50 different irrevocable life insurance trust modules here. Like I don't need to include all these outputs. These calculators maybe were or were not used. But other things that were, those recommendations like in a cash flow design or a wealth distribution are going to show up here. And I can include that as an image, as a page, as a part of my final output. I'm going to go back, save it, I can preview it. I'm back on the preview screen, and now I can jump around and see, what does it look like at various sections. My current overview, which again, we're in hypothetical mode here, so it's not populated. But I can actually not only design my output here, I can customize it within this window. So I don't have to go back to current overview to do these things. I can actually build it all out from within this fee-based planning section. So it's all the same tools as we've always used. It's just organized a little differently. But that is what our deliverable is ultimately going to be derived from. Okay. At the end of our hour, covered a lot of ground, a lot of different areas. What questions do we have about fee-based planning?
Submit. Okay, so we have to do once we print that out, we submit that to pass.
Yep.
And then they come back, change this, do that.
Yep. Or you're good.
Okay.
Our experience so far is that there's not a lot of feedback.
Because it's LBS, it's already kind of.
That's right.
Yeah.
Which is the advantage of doing financial planning, is that it's going to be looked at, it's going to be scrutinized less intensely than Ashby totally customizing something in an Excel worksheet and creating a PDF of that. A lot more questions, a lot more documentation required. All right, questions. Do you recommend presenting pieces of the plan and implementing and presenting the whole plan? So here's what I have found to be helpful. Of course, that process, right? So if we look at like the engagement letter here, we'll typically lay out that there are these components of planning. There's the objectives that we're trying to achieve. And over the course of, in this case, like 3 meetings, 2 meetings, however many it is, we're going to address all of these, and we're going to solicit client feedback. And so the nature of the plan, the recommendations are going to change over time, so that at the end of the 3 meetings we agreed upon, we'll have a revised deliverable, right? That's going to be exactly what they wanted. It's going to meet all their requirements, all their objectives, and that's what we're going to push print on and send up to Park Avenue. So that is going to be customized. I would wait until you've had all those conversations to create the final plan. It doesn't mean you can't live in it like a draft form in the interim, but what you're going through with the client is things like this. Like
So you're showing them LBS. You're still showing them everything you did before. You're really not printing it till we're done.
Done.
Okay.
You give them everything, right? Absolutely. This doesn't mean they don't get to take home maybe a piece of it, but this is just a little bit different than the way we might have engaged up to this point. As far as implementing, implementation is going to maybe happen before the whole plan is ultimately delivered, which is okay. You just have to be very clear that this is a separate part of the engagement, and that we've already identified even before the whole plan is delivered that we need to get this process started. I can help you do that, or you can get that started with somebody across the street. If they're cool with us getting it started, then we just proceed with underwriting as we normally would, or whatever the implementation is. You just have to be clear. This is separate. I get compensated to manage, this life insurance portfolio today and in the future. That's separate than the way I'm being compensated to deliver the blueprint, the plan to you. We just never thought of it that way. All right. Any other questions? Good. Thanks, everybody. What? Oh, sorry, we got one. Scott Haney, we're waiting on you. If you're not a great typist, you can also just ask the question. That's me.
It's muted.
It's a long one. So, Scott, this is a good question. Would it be appropriate to charge a fee up front, and if they implement with you, waive the fees for reviews? What you can't do, what there can't be any indication of, is that there's this
Quid pro
rebate, quid pro quo. I'm going to charge. The fee is $10,000, but if you do the implementation with me, I will not charge you the remaining fee that's owed, or I'll rebate or refund you in some way. That's considered rebating by the powers that be, in the same way that inducing somebody to buy a life insurance policy by promising, I'll return part of the commission to you, is rebating. There's nothing wrong with, Scott, though, you making the business decision going forward. They charge the fee, you charge the fee, they pay the fee, they do implementation. You could have charged that person a fee for an annual review, and now you choose not to. Totally fine. That's it. Every time they charge a new fee each year is a new engagement, technically. And so there's no reason that you can't make that business decision at that point in time. So I think we maybe addressed that in a roundabout way there. Yep, it just can't be part of the initial engagement, or it's rebating. As long as it's a separate deal, waiving an annual review fee, totally different.
Neil,
Yes, sir.
let's say we engage with a client, they pay us 50% up front, and 4 months later they decide they're done. They don't want to move forward. We haven't delivered anything yet.
I'm sure it was
Yep.
bad Wednesday.
In that instance, basically what would happen under that scenario is that we just wouldn't collect the remaining fee, because it was contingent upon delivery of the document. If they pull out, they terminate, which they have the right to do. It's built into the agreement. They can terminate at any time, and they only have to pay. You only have to be compensated, wherever this sucker went here, to the degree that. Here we go. Section 6 here, right? To the degree that your time has been incurred.
So then I don't have to return the $1,500 I took up front.
Nope.
Okay.
I think you just have to be very, very clear that you can document the time spent already, right? Beautiful. Any other questions?
Well, it's like when you send clients the letter saying, hey, we need to meet next month. I'm waiting for it. Give me the time or whatever. That documentation will suffice that you made a best effort, good faith effort to get them to come back and sit down and do what they needed to do.
And to that end, in this case, they've also got to say in writing that I want to stop the process.
Yeah,
This is very, very clear. At that point, you can say, well, that's great. We met this many times. I did this much work in the back office. And so there's no need to refund anything, or submit a partial refund, or maybe if you really want to pursue it, they do owe you something. I don't know. But that's built into the process. All right. Any other questions?